the DA's Werner Horn joins us now via our video link. It's lovely to have you on the program, so thanks very much indeed for your time. So help us understand what the DA has issue with here. Is it the process itself or the candidate that emerged on the other side of the process?
Well, no. In terms of the process, one must, of course, wonder why in this specific round, for example, no judges accepted nomination for this position, and that's something we as a country and we as a legislature must reflect on. It would seem that status of the office being an office of influence, of stature, are somehow being undermined in a great way over the last 7 years. But in terms of the current process, we ultimately concluded that Ms. Kaleka did not satisfy the requirement of being fit and proper to be appointed in this position. In terms of our assessment, her interview exposed a lack in terms of the basic competencies in respect of the way an investigation must unfold to find facts and to adjudicate disputes. And in terms of propriety, the other requirement, element in the fit and proper test, we unfortunately of the view that the shadows cast by her time first in the NPA when she was a great supporter of the then NDPP, Menzies Simelane, who ultimately was himself found not to be fit and proper for that position, and her role, or actually the omissions to act in her role as the special advisor of former Minister Malusi Gigaba, when it was already in the public domain that he had a very cozy relationship with the Guptas. All those aspects, in our view, ultimately rendered her unsuitable for appointment.
Yeah, it sounds to me that it's more the candidate you have an issue with than the process itself. But what's your response then to people who say, well, that's just not how a constitutional democracy works? If you're going to buy into a process, then you have to accept its outcome too. And it seems in this case, Kollega Kaleka's name is the one that's survived whatever process that ad hoc committee was part of.
Well, I think that type of attitude, of course, overemphasizes the majority rule in a democracy. In our constitutional democracy, of course, decisions to be taken specifically in recommending somebody for appointment, if a criteria like fit and proper is to be used, then of course it's not simply a case of majority rules. Everybody within the ad hoc committee had the responsibility to weigh the answers. Now, the governing party, who of course is in support of her, and I think an objective assessment of the whole process might even lead to a suspicion that they've always been in support of her nomination. They are of the view that this interview was exemplary. The one or two answers which she couldn't give on essential elements like what is the test or the process to follow in South Africa now to properly interpret laws and statutes, they're of the view that that's of no consequence. We disagree vehemently with them, and we feel that if the criterion of being fit and proper is properly applied, then unfortunately neither she nor any of the other 7 candidates met the threshold, and therefore we strongly of the view that to serve our constitutional democracy in this office well, Parliament must rather resolve to re-advertise and invite fresh applications and nominations.
Yeah. I suppose if that were to happen, we run the risk of, once again, having no candidate that the DA reckons is fit enough for that position. The question that comes up then is, where do we draw the line? In a context, by the way, where we need to fill this post by October.
Yeah, well, as it is, we currently have an acting public protector, so the point has been made specifically in that constitutional court case where the incumbent, Busisiwe Mrugobane, said that her suspension was undermining constitutional democracy in the office by the court, that for as long as there is a deputy who can act, the business of the office can continue, and the deputy's tenure is not about to come to an end. Ayanda, yes, and to return to your question as to whether there could be somebody who satisfy our requirements. I believe there's many people out there in South Africa with the necessary skills and competencies. And as I said right in the beginning, maybe it's also time to reflect as to why none of those people have put up their hands in the air to say, I'm prepared to serve this country as the public protector. And one of the reasons is, of course, that this office has become a bit of a poison chalice.
Yeah.
Every big factional dispute of the ANC, given the fact that very few within the ANC has clean hands when it comes to maladministration and corruption, is now kicked to the office of the public protector. And that also should stop so that the public protector can once again fulfill the role of protecting Joe Soap when Joe Soap is at the receiving end of maladministration.
Absolutely. The office has been seen as a weapon for proxy wars, if you like, not only in the governing party, but I think across the political spectrum. And I suppose this was an opportunity for us to ensure the candidates, at the very least, that if they were to get into that position, they'd be safeguarded from that. And the impression I'm getting from you is that not enough of that has happened, that whoever is ultimately appointed in this position is certainly exposed in that way and may find themselves having to fend off the same challenges.
You're absolutely correct. And in that sense, of course, it was not a positive development for the acting public protector to be tasked to deal with the Pala Pala investigation. But then also, once again, there's lingering issues. There's a pending judicial review of that report. And in that sense, unfortunately, she has not been able to steer the ship through very choppy waters during her acting stint.
Yeah. Most people who are against, well, let me qualify that. A lot of the organizations that are against her appointment are pointing to the Pala Pala report as reasons for why they believe, in fact, she'll just be an extension of the ANC, almost a mouthpiece for the president. Is that a concern you share as the DA, or are you basing your decision solely off the back of her interview and what you reckon came out of that?
No, it's of course a concern we share, and specifically also given the way in which she, in terms of the basic process that is to be followed, for example, to interpret the law, Section 96 of the Constitution, which talks about the fact that neither the President nor any other member of the executive may do other paid work, which of course called for interpretation. The fact that she couldn't answer a question as to what process or what rules she used to interpret that specific section, along with some very, let's say, flimsy conclusions she reached in the Pala Pala report, is a big concern to us. More of a concern to us, however, is the fact that in the interview, she was not able to properly explain some of the problematic aspects of that report. And if one is busy for nearly a year with a report involving the first citizen of this country, you must surely, during an interview to be escalated to the top position in that office, be able to properly explain all of the actions you took in doing that investigation. And in that sense, her interview was very disappointing.